In the aftermath of Ghana's recently concluded elections, the nation stands at a crossroad. The results have set the stage for a new government to assume office, raising expectations among citizens for a decisive leadership, accountability, and policies that directly address present socio-economic challenges. But the incoming government is also faced with the test of balancing the expectations and desires of the people as against what they can truly and realistically do. All of that in an atmosphere charged by electoral disputes. Now, that's our focus this week on Hot Issues. I am Kemini Amano, and in this edition, my guest will provide expert analysis of the electoral outcome vis-a-vis Ghana's democracy. We will also delve into the delicate issue of the economy and the relationship between the ruled and the rulers the incoming government is inheriting, and how to balance their act around it. My guest is a renowned development economist and leadership expert, Professor Stephen Adei. Prof, you're welcome to Hot Issues.
Thank you very much. I hope they are not going to be too hot.
We'll try. We'll try. But Prof, let's look at the management of the elections, especially events of this week, the recollation efforts. How do you think this was managed?
First of all, we must be very careful not to throw away the baby with the bathwater. At least about 266 constituency elections, or give and take at least 260, were done peacefully, declared the same day, and it has shown that our electoral system is generally robust. So I think that we must be very careful as Ghanaians. We have come a long way in this. It's sad that these 12, and there were one or two which were declared, people were not too happy, but not contested, therefore it doesn't come in. I think we're unfortunate. And the two parties, agencies, and their people, I think must learn and give Ghana a break next time. There's no reason on earth that they should invade under any circumstance, any coalition center. And I believe that probably one of the steps we should take, that in future, we will not allow anybody except maybe one or two representatives of the parties to be in the coalition room, so that this will not happen again. We are learning, but it's unfortunate. I think that the things have gone very too quickly to my liking.
Oh, how's that?
From the EC saying that there's something wrong with these 12, the court processes and everything else, maybe in order to expedite things, has also the downside. And at this moment, can see that now all the 7 cases, the NDCs, from what I observed on the television,
have been flipped.
Very, very unhappy, and therefore it's going to be a long-drawn legal issue, possibly. And then the two, most likely, they have to do a total rerun of the elections. But it's unfortunate. And I think that I hold the two major parties responsible
for this,
allowing their supporters to really disturb an otherwise excellent election process.
I want us to look at the issue of distrust surrounding the Electoral Commission. When you look at the second collation exercise, or rather the third collation exercise, which happened on Saturday, the Electoral Commission had indicated that only 2 agents for each of the candidates should be allowed into the collation center. In the case of the NPP, there has been that, we've seen really, that there's been more than just agents of the candidates in these collation centers. The Electoral Commission appears to put itself in a situation that gives room for people, for the opposition party at the moment, to come to the conclusion that they could be conniving with the incumbent party. How can we deal with the issue of distrust?
First of all, I think that we must again be very careful. The Electoral Commission has no security or judicial powers. It can make a rule, but if the police allow people in, what are they? You mean the polling agent or the officer standing up to say drive people away and other things? So I think that they are a bit handicapped. Secondly, I saw it in 2016. Towards it, there was the same allegations against the Electoral Commissioner, Madam Osei, and eventually, but remember, in her case, her removal was on the basis of corruption, alleged corruption, which I found it very, very distasteful when she and two of her deputies were trading insults about who has broken procurement laws in the papers. I mean, so they opened themselves up to that. But what I'm saying is that, again, the two parties are undermining our institutions. In fact, from day one, again, NDC has attacked the Electoral Commissioner and some of his deputy commissioners right from day one, before they will even say Jack. And what is happening, and that is for me as a governance person and a leadership expert, it's quite disturbing. You know, at this moment, so much is being done to undermine our judiciary. Now our Electoral Commission is attacked periodically, depending upon who is in power. And already people say that the Electoral Commissioner should be removed. So we are going to have always either an quote unquote an NDC Electoral Commissioner or NPP Electoral Commission. You have then destroyed and undermined a very important institution in the country. And for me, that is worrisome. And let me tell you, between me and you, if the Electoral Commission, which already understand the trust is about 11% according to the last Afrobarometer measurement, it may come to 5 if you want to remove her and then put another one appointed by Mahama. Of course, immediately, everybody in NPP, you've already lost about 50% before even you start. And then people are attacking the judiciary at the highest level. For me, my worry, and I side with Obama, in democracies, what matters at the end of the day is institution, institution, institution.
So we should make the institution stronger.
And at this moment, I don't see that in sight, because the attack on our very fundamental institutions is quite worrisome.
Okay, so let's take a few steps back. What would it take to make our institutions like the Electoral Commission, like the judiciary, stronger?
Let me take the Electoral Commission, which is on the face. Let me tell you, we have progressed in our electoral process, that whoever is in the seat, even if you make Mahama or Akufo-Addo the Electoral Commissioner, nobody could have changed the landslide victory. And the same way in 2016, I mean, there was this lady there, and Mahama lost.
It was the elections, yeah.
To me, it gives me confidence that actually the commission, not the individual at the head, has progressed to the extent that the margin for whoever is in power to win by default is now, thank God, very, very little. And therefore, for example, I would therefore not change an electoral commissioner because he's not on, quote unquote, not on my side, because the process will not allow any shady deal. There will be margins like these 12 out of 276, which is being disputed. We have come a long way, and I think that we should give, when it comes to the judiciary, actually I've served on the Judicial Council before, and I resigned because of some conscience issue on one case, which if you ask me, I won't tell you because, but we have one of the best judicial systems on this continent. And I think that instead of undermining the system there, it just happened that Akufo-Addo in his time, so many of them reach the age of 70. And it happens in America, so that if the Republicans are there, you find, and I would say, as a former member of the Judicial Council, we need more Supreme Court judges.
In the country?
Yes, we
don't have enough?
No, we can go to 20. And I'm glad that for some reason, Akufo-Addo did not, the 5 didn't go through the one he wanted to add, because you have had enough appointments. Leave it for somebody else to come. And I would like to go to 20. The reason is very simple. Unlike other countries, our Supreme Court is the final appeal for every case. So, therefore, the paneling is quite a lot. In other words, if you and your husband fight at home and you don't like it and you take it to court, you can appeal all the way to Supreme Court. In other countries, that is not allowed. Say marital issues ends at this level, period. This ends at district court level. So there are only exceptional things that go to the Supreme Court, constitutional things, reference from, say, the National House of Chiefs, and a few others. Our Constitution has made it necessary to have more Supreme Court justices, because every Ghanaian, when he goes to court and is not satisfied, has the right to appeal all the way to the Supreme Court. And unfortunately, that is an entrenched, I think it's an entrenched position, so you cannot change it. That doesn't mean that you can have ad infinitum. I think that there must be a limit. But I wouldn't think that having 20, because of that, other than that, we will still have so much backlog of cases. And I think that Mahama must consider adding about 5. So that
he should make some appointments.
I think that he should make some appointments. We need about 20 Supreme Court. And I'm talking from my experience as a member of the Judicial Council in the past.
Indeed. So, Prof, I'll come back to the point of the appointments.
Yeah.
But again, like I said, let's take a few steps back. So I take it as you don't support calls for President-elect John Dramani Mahama to remove the Chief Justice and the Electoral Commissioner, the chairperson of the Electoral Commission.
First of all, it will be disastrous, especially initially in his term. He will be consolidating a very bad practice, which will not augur well for Ghana's future, whereby every president basically appoints a new electoral commissioner. Hopefully, if what has gone on, Jean may decide to resign herself, then that is, we must find a way of not destroying our institutions, but how do we make it better? But as for the Supreme Court Chief Justice, I think, from my personal point of view, if they touch the Chief Justice by political removal, and not because he has done something that requires impeachment and goes through an impeachment process, I and you will pay a heavy price for it. Not because of her, but because of the undermining of the system.
Right. I mean, the arguments for those who would want to see both of them out will be that they do not work well with the president-elect or the party in office. Does that matter?
The question is this. The Chief Justice must not work well with Akufo-Addo or Mahama. He must be seen to uphold the law. And therefore, if she is not upholding the law, then you go through the justification, the impeachment, and everything else. So, but cannot use a political motivation and decision to remove a Chief Justice. God forbid if you do that. When it comes to the Electoral Commission, once again, there are certain processes. If you can prove that he has gone against a certain fundamental things, for example, some say that incompetence, you will be find very difficult to prove incompetence. It's easier to prove corruption But incompetence is very difficult. So what I'm saying is this: the Electoral Commission, I would like that if he has done wrong, prove it, remove it. But if you do so because he was appointed by NPP without showing that in the discharge of her duties, she's done wrong. I mean, for example, I would have fought against Comfort Osei, that Charlotte, yes. Charlotte Osei, if he was removed because he was appointed by Mahama, some of us would have gone to everything to, but the case was an issue, quote unquote, of corruption or procurement practice. Nobody can defend her on that. So she wasn't removed on the basis of her job.
Because of that.
Yeah. So we must find a way of dealing with lapses without destroying our institutions.
Prof, when we look at the recollation and redeclaration efforts ongoing now, seats that the NDC believed they had won have now been declared in favor of the NPP. And like you rightly noted, it would appear that we are headed for a long drawn-out,
it will not end with
legal battles on those constituencies. But at the same time, we'll need some tact in managing those legal issues, in managing the atmosphere around those issues as well. What would you advise?
I think that our politicians, as much as they would like to make a political noise, should use the legal process that will cool tempers. It's unfortunate. I was hoping that some will go this way and some will go the other way, so that balancing.
Yeah.
It didn't happen that way. So it makes it a bit, I mean, to the ordinary person, as if, it
something is happening.
Yes.
Okay.
So, but I believe that where it is now, there shouldn't be President Mahama making a statement and then, Akufo-Addo replying. They have been doing it in past, he goes to this meeting and then they throw this one here. I think for the sake of our democracy, they must be a bit circumspect and then allow the legal processes. And I do not believe that justice will not be served. Atto-Forson is walking free. Was it not the same Supreme Court?
It was.
Our processes, this man at Asin North, was this his name?
Jachi Kwesi.
Yes. When they allowed the legal process to go through, if they had allowed it quicker and not appeal and other things, he would have been in Parliament for more time. Why? Because his people showed them the NPP, the red card. So he had to stay out for all this long because they were appealing, going to court and other things. Whilst it had been declared vacant right from the beginning, I'm sure he would have won straight away. Because in his case, it wasn't because the people didn't like him. It was a legal process which says technicalities, you don't qualify. When you declared it, he applied it, he went through. So we must find a much more, this country is unduly being polarized all by our political parties. We have a lot, hundreds, literally, of chieftaincy cases, but most of them are local. The national issues are all political. And I think that the two parties, for the sake of Ghana, our cohesion and the social capital, can do better.
I see, Prof. When we look into the future, are there new reforms we can apply to our electoral process to curb situations like this, or they are just inevitable?
I think that we are learning along the way. One of the things which has come out, and I think that the Constitution gives the Electoral Commissioner the powers to say that next time, when we are collating it, we will not allow anybody to come within a certain, once you have cast your vote, apart from the representative there, all people will not be allowed nearby. So I think that it's not so much of legal or constitutional issues. It has to be an administrative issues, and hopefully our leaders calling their people to order.
Indeed. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll look at the incoming government and what they are capable of doing for us or not. Don't go away. You're welcome back to Hot Issues. Prof, I want to look at the undisputed presidential race, right? We know that it was an overwhelming win for the NDC.
Massive.
In Parliament too, we see a very large difference between the incoming majority and the minority side.
Tsunami.
You could call it that.
This is a tsunami. I mean, this is so.
But what does it say to you about the mindset of the Ghanaian voter at this time?
For me, it's a sign of maturation, that our people are getting mature. But let me tell you that NDC did not win the elections. And actually, that is systematic in the past one also. In Ghana, always the government loses the election. Because I think that NDC the President Mahama got only about 200,000 votes above what he got in 2020, which means that even the biological increase of NDC members, he didn't get much. Partly not because of his fault, but people being disillusioned and say that we won't go and vote. So a little bit came from there. But much of the loss was that MPP members says enough is enough. And I think that it shows when people are in power, they become blind. That they couldn't sense how really even their own members were angry with what has happened into the economy and how people felt and the rest. Let me tell you, I won't mention the district because I was there just after the election, not my own district, which is Brekusu South, where I live now. But in an MPP stronghold, which they have held it for 24 years, the people who rejoiced most were not NDC. It was MPP people. They were so happy that their MP, who had been imposed upon them because all that you needed to do was to bribe the 500 or so people who nominate there, and would not care for, even when the MP's own campaign was being launched, he had taken them for granted. He didn't come for his own campaign launch. That is how arrogant they had reached and how much they had offended the people. And I think that it is good that at a certain point, the people are now saying that you cannot take us for granted. And I think President Mahama said it's not only a lesson for NPP, it's a lesson for NDC, for their future.
Indeed. And you see, that disillusionment is what makes me worry about the expectations the Ghanaian citizens will have right now. How realistic should it be?
First of all, I called Ghanaian manifestos and campaigns promissory notes. They promise so much and win, and they cannot. I was telling somebody that if I were in Mahama, the first thing is that the first month I look at the things, and the truth is that there's no money. And much of the things he's saying, he cannot say that. Having looked at the things which I was looking from outside, A, B, and C, and D, I can do in 4 years. This I've found I cannot do. I think that one of the downfalls of Akufo-Addo is inability to manage expectations, because what he promised that he will do, in fact, you know that the past 2 years, we never had Ghana beyond aid. None of them talk about. He was talking about Ghana getting to a point, taking us to a point whereby we don't need aid. Now we are begging.
Begging for money.
Money. So expectation management is very, very important in running your home, running an organization, running a country. So the first thing that I will advise is to manage the expectations. The second thing that it has to do is that things should be done with the Ghanaian involvement. He has already, in one case, for example, he said he will call some forum to discuss free SHS. A semblance, even if you are sometimes not meaning it, there must be seen that you are engaging the people in all this. Some of them, I think that they must carefully consider their promises. For example, the taxes is going to waive, and here I'm talking as an economist. I would not have even promised that I will remove e-levy. Because one of the very difficult things to do in a country like ours is getting people to comply with tax payment. You can make the rules and other things, but they won't pay. And in tax administration, if it costs more to collect money than what you are going to get, you better forget it. And as for levy, I would rather like to reduce some other taxes and keep this one, because as soon as you say, it's gone.
And keep e-levy?
Yes. Why? Because unlike income, my friend standing there, unless you say, what's your income? Oh, I'm a poor person. He will go and do galamsey, not galamsey we used to call it in Gimpa, things in the back, moonlighting and that things. And some of people earn more than their declared income. But how are you going to find them? So you must reduce taxes which are difficult to correct, and keep ones which are easier. So I will I will look at e-levy, cosmetically reduce more and other things, but it's easier to get. That is why any tax...
Because everybody uses it,
yes,
whether you're in the formal or informal sector.
And that is why anything linked to telecommunication, anything linked to electricity as a means of correction is very, very easy. So that is why the white man, when he was our overlord, he went for lampu. You call it land pool, this per head one, because he couldn't distinguish between me and my brother. So he says, no, if you have a head, you pay 1 cedi. Everybody has a head if you are more than 18. And I remember my mothers, when they are going to the town or market, they always have their lampo receipt in their aboso. Why? Because at any time, have you paid? And if you haven't paid, there and then you have to pay. So,
but Prof, what do you say to people who say that the e-levy has become a nuisance tax because it's too expensive? It's like you're paying multiple, taxes for the same money.
That's what I'm saying, that there should be a total tax review.
Okay.
There's too much. For example, I imported something and I look at it. I was actually so angry. I thought that it was a lie. I had to, even a former GRA chairman, I had to go and say, is it true? About 21 taxes on a car import. I mean, that is ridiculous. So we need a total look at taxes. But in looking at it, look at ones which are easier to correct and which is more widespread, so that the tax base is very narrow. There are only about 1 million income taxpayers in Ghana, out of the 33 of which half are adults.
So shouldn't we be then expanding the net to get all those people in? A conversation we've been having for over a decade now.
That is why certain areas, that's why the e-levy, for example, if it can be reduced but kept there, because everybody then virtually is there, then you must go for property taxes. Why? Because the property tax, you cannot put your house in your pocket. It's only that we are not doing it. And you must cut funding for the local governments. In Accra, they should be able to correct sufficient. The houses are there. This house, where is your tax? And the value, you can even see the value of houses right from just by looking at it and the area it is. Why? Because go and ask for a plot in East Legon. Immediately it's 1 million. Now, if you are sitting in a 1 million plot plus a building on it, at least you are 2 million. So in tax area, you must be very, very careful. In a developing country, make it easier to correct. Don't have a multiple one, and then make sure that as many people are robed into it as possible.
So, but is that not then making the job of the GRA easier while, burdening the small 1 million people who are already paying taxes with?
No, because at the end of the day, we call about the incidence of tax. So that's why you should look at all of them and see, taken together, how much is it costing? Is it, I'm a 30% marginal tax rate. In other words, if you earn above a certain percent for every CD, so that is 30%. If you add my e-levy, if you add my VAT, you may come to the point that it is actually about 50%. And then you may want to bring it to 25. So the incidence of tax should be looked at. But don't go and say, I don't like it. That's what the Akufo-Addo's government said. He said, we are going to cancel all the nuisance taxes. And now there's what's another word for nuisance, or worst part of it, nuisancia taxes. So I think that they must be very careful. But at this moment, they have no choice but to remove e-tax.
To do what they have said they will do.
But in recrafting it, they must find a way of reducing the multiplicity of the taxes, possibly reduce the incident of taxes when you come to what it amounts to, but how you can broaden the base and then make it easy to correct.
Which means it's also not a good move to remove the tax on bets or sports betting.
Well, that's
also an easy one to target.
Yeah, that one, let me say my point of view from a different point of view. As a father, as a Christian leader, we call it sin tax. And sin taxes must be higher, not reduced.
I see. So the sin taxes should go up.
Everywhere in the world, cigarette taxes, alcoholic drink, betting taxes, these are not the ones. I will want them to be 50%.
I see.
Because I don't want my grandchildren, which is everyone who is under 30, are you one of them? To be betting. It is one of the disastrous habits that we should discourage. And sin taxes are things I am.
So we should even keep them higher.
Oh yeah, it should be higher.
Right. So it would appear that one of the top priority areas the incoming government should look at will be a tax review.
Yes, a comprehensive
tax review. But the change that they need to deliver will be much more than making revenue from taxes. What other top priority areas should they be looking at?
Listen, at the end of the day, is the economy. If the economy is doing well, and because they talk about going to solve unemployment and other things. The government of Ghana employs less than 1 million people. This gymnastic of youth employment, NABCO and other things are all gymnastics. At the end of the day, if, say, inflation is down, the borrowing is down to about 15%. It can go lower, but now I cannot ask for the moon. And private sector businesses. I mean, I'm not boasting, but my school, last month, you know the number of people we paid? 352. And if you have 1,000 people, and there are many who can have businesses that can employ that, you are talking about how many? In the millions. So it's the first area is the economy. So that you make businesses easier, employment, someone employs 2 here, 3 here. So the economy is number 1. Number 2, which they are trying to do, is corruption. Corruption is a canker which, if we don't tackle it, I don't know where we are going to go. Actually, I don't know whether the politicians ever mean business. They come.
Why is that? You don't think they want to tackle corruption?
No. What I'm saying is that over the time, corruption has been growing. And they have come to power and gone, come to power and gone, come to power and gone. And now but that is an area where if Mahama can make not a vindictive type of things, but putting in a system which when you steal, you will be found, you will be dealt with, and you will set an example. Because unless we reduce corruption, we have nowhere to go. I think that the area of environment now is now on a very high level we must tackle. That is Galamsey. And wanting destruction of our forests and our farmlands. And we are, I don't know whether you have been traveling. I do travel a lot for other reasons, which I don't want to go in. I go to Bogoso, Wasamenfi, where I went to school, Sehuyo also, I went to visit them recently, Chirano mines, and everywhere else. I went the other day, people were shocked. I drove myself to Bimbila and back with my girlfriend, that's my wife. And I said that no, because when I'm driving long distances, I don't want these young boys to be driving the wife of my youth. So I drove to Bimbila 13 hours and back myself. But as you travel, the destruction of our environment has reached epidemic proportion. We must look at education also, not as only SHS. You know, the biggest problem is that the 80% of basic school, primary to primary and JHS, which are government owned, most of them, the World Bank study in 2016, do you know how they describe education at that level in Ghana is schooling without learning? Yes.
That's tragic.
It's tragic. We are living in the fool's paradise of yesteryears, Ghana's education. No. I go to my village at least once a month, most of the times, because we have a school from KG to secondary school there. And it's tragic. When I'm insisting that 80% of all the students in the secondary school in my village, which my wife and I have founded, should come from the 12 villages around my village. You know that 90% of them, we take them from the junior school, having finished from the public. We have to spend 1 year preparing them to be able to cope with secondary school. At this moment, I have 74 of them, and we have given it a nice name, Transition Access Year. And this is, so the education must be looked at comprehensively. I will stop here because...
because I want us to look at each of those priority areas.
Then we are going to spend 2 years here.
We'll try not to. We'll try not to, right? Since we started with the economy already, let's go on to, the 120-day promise that the president-elect has made. One of the things he wants to do within that period is a Senchi-like conference where, they bring minds together. Obviously, you've talked about participatory governance.
And Senchi was a very good model.
It was a good model, which means that, doing this is good. But what I want the Ghanaian people to understand is to what extent could it help support efforts? I
think that whether we like it or not, and I'm talking as an economist, I'm a development economist, there are some hard things that we have to swallow in order to mend the economy. We have to increase revenue without necessarily increasing the incidence of taxation, which is difficult. We have to cut expenditure. This import, whereby, excuse me, I know they will get me in trouble, but I will say it, Guta think that they are as important to Ghana as Ghana Association of Industries. I mean, the importers. No, they are not. We should make imports difficult. We should stop importing everything like orange juice and everything else, and we can live without them. Nigeria stopped even rice. There are 240 million people, and they are now almost rice self-sufficient. There are some hard decisions, and you don't take hard decisions sitting in Jubilee House and then says, this is what I want to do. It will give you another tsunami 4 years' time. So you bring the people. Again, let me tell NDC and MPP, their members are not the only Ghanaians. There are less than 500,000 NDC and MPP card holders. The other Ghanaians, for every one intelligent NPP or NDC, you have at least 10 equivalent of Ghanaians in the other sectors. And, let me tell you that, I was one of the 6 people who chaired the Senche consensus. I chaired the economic one. And Pakwesi, my friend, I was there in as far as in Kuranza. I got a call in an evening about 5 o'clock, says that I want you in Senche the next morning. I said, excuse me, are you crazy, Pa? But of course, I can tell him in private, he was vice president. So I said, yes, sir, I will be there. Then DC is here to pay my fare. I had to ride to Kumasi, take a plane, arrive that night, arrived there. And to me, it was such a wonderful, the chairman, I can't remember that myself, PV Obin, Patrick Awia, was Kwame Pianim there? I think so. And we came out that this is the way to go. And we told Mr. President, So, of course, not being a politician, you keep quiet and the politician fight. You have taken us to IMF. And I think that the economy is so important. And NDC has gotten some intelligent people like MDC, but at the end of the day, I think we have a wider Ghanaian pool of intelligence. And you don't lose anything. At the end of the day, when they tell you and you don't like it, you choose what you do. But having access to the best brains in Ghana, and even from outside, Ghanaian diaspora has gotten some very good knowledge.
Right. So putting together the conference, they should look at varied places for human resource to come
for
up
every
with a plan
sector.
It
should be general economic, but also sectorial.
Just like it was with Senche.
Yes, Senche.
Very well. Speaking of the IMF, the government-elect has talked about, not cancelling the program.
They can't. Because if they cancel it.
They can't even cancel. But
the city will tumble to 30 overnight and we will all be dead. There's a way, I think that they are capable, I know they will handle it well. They will not even dare to touch it.
But the president-elect has, noted the difficulties he would have with the IMF in the picture and his immediate radical reforms, what he calls immediate radical reforms. How should he strike the balance? Is there room for balance? The reforms he wants to implement and the IMF program on the other hand?
People, unfortunately, the IMF is a good scapegoat to serve them right. They think that they are the rulers of the world. But when we talk about the IMF program, the 3 billion is peanuts, of which about more than half has been chopped. No. The IMF program is actually all your donors, all your creditors saying that you have been misbehaving, quote unquote. If you don't subject yourself to the discipline of the IMF, we will show you the red card. So when you go to the IMF, that's why they are that powerful. So it's not the IMF program. I mean, we can throw away their 3 billion. We can save it by just reducing corruption small. And that is it. But the fact that it is a litmus test of all your relationships with your bilaterals and the multilaterals, and in this case, also your commercial debtors. So that is the first issue. But there's room, and here, you can go to them, hey, I'm a new government. If I don't get a leeway, a little small, I'll be in trouble. And they understand that language. So you are not going there, I'm the new government. Just go away. Your government, what will happen to you there will catch you up. So, but I think that the IMF and their sister World Bank will understand that a new government needs a little bit. In other words, they will allow you, there are certain ceilings, they will allow you small to go above, say, the deficit a little bit more, and that what you could have achieved, say, in 2 years can be spread over 3 years or 4 years with that understanding, and if you keep to it. So this is the type of margins you go in there. If you go in, I mean, like Lawrence came, I was then the head of research and economist of investment promotion. Oh, yeah, no. By August 1983, they were there begging. Please, they shouldn't do that. Fortunately, you can blame the outgoing government for putting us there, and then you can negotiate for certain lengthening of certain time. What you have to do it in 6 months, let us do it in. And also, they can, even if you're a good boy, they can decide that we will extend the program by giving you more money.
I see. Will extension be helpful to the country?
No, but the question is that all that they are asking you to do are the things you should do anyway. But you said that, instead of the 3 billion, that give us 6 billion and let it be a program for 5 years. At least it will be after you. No, it may be another NDC. I'm not saying that there will be a change in regime. So there's the room for that. But if you go with Katechi, one word by the IMF West African vice president or whatever it is can dip your city, can do you so much harm, and they don't stand for election.
I see. Prof, the incoming government and the incumbent appear to be at variance on the impact of the IMF program on the economy, while the president and his finance minister have said that the economy has rebounded. The president-elect says he does not believe those figures. He doesn't think that the growth being announced by the finance minister...
True.
Yes, it's true. What do you see as far as the impact of the program is concerned for us?
At the end of the day, it's talking like half cup full or half empty. Let me tell you, these growth figures, which they like to fight about it, if there's an average of 5% growth in nominal terms, and population is growing about, say, 2.5%, its real growth is 2.5%. When your conditions is improved by 2.5%, will you see a difference? The answer is no. But cumulatively, it makes a difference. In the short run, that by itself, the performance of the economy will not make much difference for the ordinary Ghanaian. What will make a difference for the ordinary Ghanaian, of course, for that to be sustained over a longer time, meanwhile, dealing with things that we have to do now, reducing inflation. We don't need to go into it, making sure that we cut imports, we increase revenue so that the city is stabilized, if possible, improved. Then it will have a direct impact on that. But the performance of the economy is too fragile for me as a development economist to say that the last 3 months, the economy grew by that. Do you know that much depends upon even the harvest? We are actually from August to December is our peak period in harvesting everything. So a lot of things, if you even them all out, it is a good sign, and I don't think there should be any disputation about it, because eventually the facts will show up. But then it has a marginal effect. Let the politicians talk about it. As a development economist, it is quite marginal at this stage. But the program would stabilize, if we are able to follow through, to stabilize the whole economy and allow the economy to start functioning a bit better than it has been in the past.
I see. Which brings me to the question. Earlier this year, you had mentioned that the Ghanaian people should brace themselves for a difficult 2025 and beyond. Is the outlook still the same?
Yes. Because, sad to say, let me give you a best case scenario. If our economy grows at an average of 8%, and I'm using round figures to make it easier for if you are not a statistician, and the population is growing at 3%, you have 5% growth. Do you know that when an economy or anything by compound interest grows at 5%, it takes 15 years to double? That's how long it takes.
15 years.
15 years. So, but of course, we have had 30 years, 32, 33 years. If we have been growing that way, by now, the difference would have been day and night. So the first thing is that it will take a longer time for us to get out of this doldrum. The second is that between now and 2028, when the IMF program, if it is not extended, will end. After 2025, 2026, we have now to be repaying the debt. Because at this moment, the government is not paying any interest, any principal of our debt. 2026, 27, 28, we have to be paying it. And these things must be factored into it. Meanwhile, we have to be looking at how we are going to solve our energy problem and other things. But it is doable. And I believe that people can be, when they see the sincerity of the leadership, that they are not, for example, and I'm not saying that they should, if I'm president, I will not use even allow any minister to use a V8. Not because the V8 already been bought, but the question, the psychology. When you say we are in trouble, if you use a Pajero or any of these four wheels being made in Ghana, it still goes. So there must be, when you are able to demonstrate to people that times are hard, they are prepared to listen to you. Even in my micro situation in Gimpa, my first 2 years, I told the people that we will not get a salary increase for 2 years, but good times are coming. Do you know that we didn't get salary increase for 2 years, while before me, as public servant, they were entitled to any announcement of increase in that. But they were able to bear with me. But 2-3 years, we were able to double our salary.
You don't say. You don't say, Prof. I'd want us to turn attention to, and again, I wanted us to talk about jobs, but perhaps we should skip that and look at the second priority area you mentioned, which is corruption. The two things the incoming administration wants to do: one, it wants to work with a lean government.
Okay.
And so the issues of ministers, V8, and all that will be cut down, right? But is it an issue of quantity or quality, or perhaps a matter of both? As far as your expertise is concerned.
First of all, we will hold him responsible for what he said. But the system is not ministers, including deputy ministers. And since some areas will have 2 deputy ministers, then we are talking about not more than 25 ministers. So that is, so I think that the numbers, a country like Ghana, I think that you can rule Ghana with even 15 ministers. Because you have divisional chief directors and other things who, highways. Now we have 5 transport ministries. Come on. So the room to cut is very much. So that is the first. The second has to do with the quality and how the structure. Because a minister is not the one who does the day-to-day. It is the technical heads. So you must structure it. You can have railways, doesn't have to have a minister for railways to have one in Pakadai. Or, then you have minister for transport, minister for roads, minister for airplanes. All of them can be headed. So therefore, his 60, to me, even is so high, but if he has been able to reduce somebody's by 40%, you cannot complain. So I think that has to do. But it's also how much you allow them to spend and waste. I was just talking to one of your young men outside. I said that, look, I earn at least twice that of a minister of state in Ghana. And the amount of houses they build, the amount of money they dash when they are doing, I'm hearing that the campaigns, they spend between 2 and 10 million. I mean, that shows it's an indication of the corruption. Because why will you spend 10 million for a job which pays you less than $500,000 for 4 years?
4 years.
So this is the area. So it's not only reducing it and making sure that capable people occupy those positions, but that they work efficiently, and that his corruption one, which you are coming to, is reduced to the barest minimum. You may not be able to eliminate corruption, but and then we are going somewhere, and there will be models, because the ministers, because they are corrupt. Let me tell you, the public servants are worse. It's endemic corruption in the public service now. But when the ministers come, they say, let's see. Then they will put some small thing there. Utafria, once you taste it, oh, look at that.
So
that means that it's all the same. Then they.
So then the president-elect can pick the best ministers,
yes,
by competency and by character.
Yes.
But if the people he's going to work for in the public service are as corrupt as you describe them, it brings us to...
No, because the public servants, that's what I'm saying, they test and see the direction of the minister. That's what I'm saying. So as soon as you go, I've seen it even in the university, as soon as public universities, a vice chancellor is appointed, the next thing is to get him a bench, get him that and that and that. Then the status quo will continue. And that's what they do. They quickly will try to compromise you.
Right.
Once they compromise you, then they say, oh, now.
So it comes back to leadership.
Leadership is cause. Everything else is effect.
Which means that the president-elect must be careful.
Himself must be a model. And then his appointees, and hold them accountable. And then for them to deliver, they will have to hold the next ranks accountable. That's how things are
In
done.
what ways could he be holding not only himself, but his appointees also accountable?
Listen, I have not been a president before, but I've been a leader in many areas.
Indeed.
And I've served a lot of people, including the General Secretary, the Secretary General of the UN, and I've served when I was younger, even the man's time, I was in the presidential team. Yeah, it is different. You have been in it for a long time. I believe that you give someone a job, you define the job, the expectations, and that is what you use in measuring them. For example, I think that, let me say, transport. NPP people, in their last minute things to try to change Ghanaians' mentality, has brought in this DRIP, that's a District Road Improvement Program, whereby every constituency has been given a caterpillar, an excavator, a truck, a grader, and that. It was an advice I gave to President Mills in 2009. And you live in Accra, but every district was supplied with one grader.
So it was done under Mills?
Yes.
Okay.
And if you go to most of the old district assemblies, there will be a grader, a Chinese grader parked there. As soon as it came, they captured it, they used it for their business, and when it got broken, it was parked there, and nothing happens. So at this moment, this is the accountability. If I have given this equipment and I give you fuel, which has to be given, then when I go to any district at any time, all the roads, feeder roads, should be motorable, because this equipment will keep every feeder road motorable. So you are holding those responsible accountable. Other than that, all the DCEs are going to be contractors.
Which is what the incoming government should do to cater to DRIP.
Yes. So I'm giving you how. So you are Minister for Roads and Transport. You say that now, and you go out. You send people to go to the districts. And the people say that the roads are not being kept motorable. You hold somebody responsible.
Thank you so much for coming.
It's
Thank
a pleasure.
you so much.
It's a
Professor
pleasure.
Stephen Adei has been my guest here on Hot Issues. I'm Kemini Amano. I'll see you same time next week. Bye-bye.